Hi and hello everyone. Welcome back to the PMP exam. So far, we have covered the exam overview, the latest updates in the exam, introduction to the project management, and we have covered two of major knowledge areas, and their associated processes. So let us focus on one of the major and very important knowledge areas, the project schedule management. So let's quickly jump right into it. Project schedule management. So this knowledge area is all about the processes that are required to manage the on-time completion of the project. So if we start linking the processes that are within this knowledge area to the process groups, they are grouped only in two of five process groups. These processes, they are present only in process groups called planning and monitoring and controlling. So why is this information important here? Whenever we work on any knowledge area or a process of the knowledge area, when we have clarity on what is happening in that process, we will spend our energy working only towards that goal. So now we know that this process that I'm learning now or I'm going to learn, they are not related to execution and are majorly focused on planning. So we have to understand that this project schedule management has no task related to execution process. So if I get a question in the exam that and I have two ambiguous answers, and one of the answers says, okay, talk something about execution and something else talks about just the planning, then we can omit the answer that talks about the execution part. So this kind of preparation, it will actually help us eliminate the possibility of answering wrong. So I hope this tip helps. So let's dig in and see what we get today. So we have earlier defined the project scope where a set of requirements are required to be converted to deliverables. So now the project scheduling helps us as a tool by providing a plan about how and when those requirements will deliver the product or process or the result. So there are two main scheduling methods that we must learn for our exam. First thing is going to be critical path method, or famously called as the CPM. And second one is going to be the agile approach, right? So I consider that you all know what a critical path method is, or for those who don't know, let me quickly use the space that we have here. So it's like you have multiple activities designed. These are the six activities, for example, and we have a start and then we have a finish. So against each activity, we assign a time to it, right? So activity A, 12 days, activity B, 15 days, something like that. And then the path which takes us the most number of days to reach the finish. So it could be this way or it could be this way. So that path is called the critical path method. So just keep that in mind. So, and for those who don't know what a bar chart is, that is also quite important. Actually, the schedule itself is quite often represented as a bar chart. Again, I'll make use of this space that we have here. This is a huge chart that you might have seen in your organizations. On the left, we will be having the list of activities. And then in the vertical column, you have all the months. And then for each activity, we will have the timelines decided, right? So whoever has worked in at least one of the project, you might be easily able to relate this chart. So on the left column, we have all the activities listed, and all other columns, we have the timeline. So this is called the bar chart. It's a very famous tool that we are going to use and that we are going to learn and discuss about in this presentation. So before we move on to the explanation again, and I also want you all to understand the latest trends in this project schedule management. Instead of just the traditional methods, it is important for the exam that what are the latest trends that we have, because in this total lesson we are focusing only on the exam point of view. You have to understand what is an iterative scheduling. So when we say iterative scheduling, it's completely the agile methodology, right? It's a newly added syllabus, and please expect a question in it. Agile method, one question for sure. So what is this iterative scheduling method? Traditionally, a product is made in a single path, and then a planning happens and then this product timeline is updated again, right? You can see there is one single iteration, but in the agile method, what happens? We will have one more iteration, that is the second iteration, and this is usually done in a shorter iterations, like 1 week sprint, 2 week sprint, 3 week sprint, and sometimes even daily, right? So this one is considered as 1 week sprint, and then two is considered as daily sprint. So what happens here is we keep on getting the feedback. So here we have a feedback, and then every day we have a feedback, and the weekly feedback is taken, and the project schedule gets updated accordingly. So as you can see, these things are in the shape of rolling waves, and that is why this is called a rolling wave tool, right? Or rolling wave method of scheduling, right? So this is a very important thing. You don't have to memorize this, but just keep this in mind. This kind of image will be shown in one of your questions, and then that means they're asking about the agile method. And second important tool in the agile itself, because we are talking about the trends, is the Kanban board. Kanban board, what does it mean? It's nothing but in the first column, we list down all the activities with the help of a sticky note or something like this. This could either be a physical board or a common OneNote, or even some nice tools are also there like Jira. All these project scheduling tools, they help us to list down the tasks first. These are all backlogs. First backlogs are listed, and then column one we will have to do, right? So what is this to do? The Scrum Master reviews the list of tasks every day, and then he decides from the backlog, today we are going to do one task. Or if we have 10 tasks, the Scrum Master will decide that we will do 3 tasks today. So from this to do that is selected at the start of the sprint, when I say sprint, it could be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, it could even be just 1 week. So it's typically between 1 to 4 weeks sprint. So on that first day of this sprint, he will decide that, okay, now we have decided that for this sprint, we will finish just 10 tasks, right? So in to do, it is just those decided tasks, but if they are done actually, they will be in progress, right? So out of the list of 10 tasks that we have identified as to do, whatever tasks have been started by the team, they will move to in progress. So there could be one more column that is called blocked, or testing, or under progress. You can add all those columns, and finally the column will be closed. Last column will be closed, right? So at the end of the sprint, how many tasks are to do? Let, for example, 10, and at the end of the sprint, we have 9 tasks closed. So the remaining one task, what will happen? It will either go to backlog, or it will be taken into the next sprint, right? So this kind of Kanban tooling is also an emerging latest trend, right? We don't have much details explained about this in the PMBOK guide. It is just a few lines about it, but these are the emerging trends which are also coming out of the PMP exam. So be aware that there are 2 latest trends in this project schedule management, very, very important. In agile, questions will definitely come, and also the Kanban board questions are going to come, right? So today we are going to learn all these 6 important processes: planning the schedule management, defining the activities, sequence of the activities, estimating the activity durations, developing schedule, and controlling schedule. Okay. Starting with creating the plan of the schedule management. So here what happens is we are going to establish the policies and documents for planning. So the main benefit of this process is that it guides us on how the schedule will be managed. Please keep in mind that this activity is not done throughout the project. Again, it is done at a very specific time period. We are differentiating all the processes also based on this, right? If you recollect the last class, we are identifying which are done throughout the project and which are done only at specific times, right? So this is one such process which is done only at the beginning of the project, or there are predefined times when this project or when this process is beginning. So first, we know the goal, what to do in this process. Second, we have to know what we need to convert into this goal, and thirdly, what tools we have for this conversion to happen, right? So if you are following this style of learning, I believe all the 49 processes will be a cakewalk to you. So let's jump to the outputs. So this is our goal for this process. We have to create the schedule management plan. Do you all remember the project management plan had so many components, right? It had 10 components in all the 10 knowledge areas. So this is one of the component of that final project management plan. So without the schedule management plan, the project management plan, the overall project management plan cannot be completed. So what does this particular output establish? We will have the project schedule model, that is the critical path method or agile method. We are, when I say we, you I consider that we are the project managers. So the project managers can decide whether the scheduling model will be in critical path method or agile method. Why did I say or? Critical path method is usually a traditional method or a waterfall methodology, and agile method, we learned about the rolling wave iterative method and the kanban method. So those are the agile methods. So we can either choose the project to go in that traditional critical path method, or we can choose whether the project will go in the agile method. Of course, we need prior permission from the project sponsor and all the other stakeholders for this, but that is decided in this schedule management plan. So with this, we will also understand what is the length of the total iteration. Will it be 3 weeks? Will it be 4 weeks? Will it be 5 weeks? If at all we choose agile method. And then the level of accuracy. What do I mean when I say accuracy? We plan something, right? We schedule something that an activity or set of activities has to be completed within, let's say, 12 weeks. So this 12 weeks cannot be an absolute time. We cannot exactly finish the work after the 12th week is finished. So it can be plus or minus 2 days or 3 days. So this 2 days or 3 days, that will be decided in this schedule management plan. So this level of accuracy is also understood here. And then the unit of measure is given, like we'll be doing it in hours or days or weeks. And most importantly, WBS. We are going to use this term a lot in this lesson. WBS, the work breakdown structure, that is also a part of this schedule management plan. And I think that's about it. Let's see what inputs we have. The project charter, of course, we learned about what a project charter is, so I'm skipping it for the sake of time. The project management plan, the project management, I told a few minutes ago that the project management plan is created only after schedule management plan is created. So, but I'm telling that this project management plan is acting as an input for this. All of the project management plan is not used, only the two components, the scope management plan and the development approach. These two components of the project management plan are going to act as inputs, and then the schedule management plan is done. And then the inputs from this are again going to form as the output for creating the project management plan. Enterprise environmental factors, right? We also learned it, internal rules, external rules, just to refresh your mind. And then organizational process assets. What does it mean? All the historical data, the company ideologies, templates, formats, all that is the assets of the organization, and we have to use that as the input. So what tools can be used? Expert consultancy, of course. You just keep in mind that in every tool, expert consultancy can be used. Very, very, very important tool. So if in case this comes in the exam, this should strike your mind. Okay, expert judgment can be one of the tools and techniques. So data analysis, again, an alternative analysis can be done here. You all recollect what an alternative analysis is, right? From the last class. It's like we have 2 or 3 options as solutions. We choose one of those alternatives. And then the meetings, of course. So I think with this said, we are finishing this process. Moving on. Defining activities. Okay, what happens here? As you can see, we are going, deeper and deeper into the project activities, right? So what do I mean by deeper? First, we had the project charter in the very first lesson that we learned. We had project charter created, which comes at a organizational level, strategy level. And this activity, it goes like one step deeper. And finally, we are here to define the activities. So this is one step further down. So we are going deeper and deeper into the project. So let's see what the outputs have. what is our goal with this process. Okay, starting with activity list. This is nothing but the list of the tasks that needs to be done. It has a short task identifying name, and then the detailed description of the task. What is the name of the task? What is the description of the task? Just a simple list, right? So if project is following the traditional methods, this list is going to be live, and new tasks keep getting added as we move on to the end of the project. So, but if the project is agile, these tasks, the iterative method, if you recollect the rolling wave method, you just keep in mind that rolling wave. Okay. So, and next thing is activity attributes. What is this? This is again just a formal identification for a better tracking. Whatever activity that we did, we are going to name it. It could be date wise, it could be team wise, whatever is the organization calling it for. So activity attributes are given at the end of this process, and then the list of milestones. Some of the milestones can be mandatory, some of them are not mandatory. If in case a customer has asked for it, it's going to be a mandatory milestone, right? So if we are choosing these milestones just by the experience of our previous project, then these are just optional milestones. There is no hard and fast rule that these milestones have to be achieved. They have to be achieved as a best practice, but there is no compulsion, right? So those lists are identified and separated. Change requests are updated at the end of this activity, and then project management plan updates. What can we update here? For example, schedule, because we are talking about schedule. So the schedule is baselined after all the activities are finished. Cost can also be finalized after the activity is done. So let's see what inputs we have to get these outputs. Project management plan, of course. And again, what can we use here? Because we are updating the schedule and cost here. So the stage without updation, the same schedule management and the scope, we get it here. And I think enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets are well understood. What do we have as tools? Expert judgment. See, again, repeated. Decomposition is also discussed before. This is just another name for work breakdown structure, how the bigger task is decomposed to smaller tasks. Rolling wave planning. So remember my exceptional drawing skills in the first page, the iterative rolling wave. So this is going to be the tools and techniques, one of the important tools for defining the activities. And finally, the meetings. Moving on to the next process, sequencing the activities. Okay, what do we have here? This process mostly focuses on relating and linking the project activities. And please mind that this is done throughout the project. Unlike the previous one that I mentioned, this is not done just at one point of time or pre-decided time frame. This sequencing is done like throughout the project, from start through end. So what are we going to achieve with this? We are going to improve the efficiency of the activities. So if we choose the sequence of the activities to be in one particular direction, we are going to achieve more efficiency than otherwise. So let us learn about this in this process. Outputs. So at the end of the activities, these should be our goals or the targets to finish. The project schedule network diagram. What does it? It sounds really scary here, but this is nothing but the critical path method. So if you remember, I have drawn that there are 6 activities identified, and then from start to end, what is the longest path? So the longest path is important because that is the worst case that could happen for the project, right? So always the critical path is chosen. So this kind of diagram is called the network diagram. So this sequencing will help us, in creating it. And then the project document updates. What could be the document that we can update here? We can update activity attributes. We can update the assumptions log. We can update the milestones list, activity list. All these things can be updated as the project document updates. After we finish it, all these documents will be updated. What do we have as inputs for this? The project management plan. Of course, everything project management plan is an input. Again, project documents, whatever documents that we are going to update here, we have to gather them as inputs in the current state. And of course, these two goes without saying. We have enterprise environmental factors, internal factors, external factors again, and the organizational process assets. The traditions, the mindset of the organization or the rules of the organization. We have to carry it in every process, right? We cannot negotiate or we cannot contradict what our organization believes in. Okay, what tools and techniques we have? Precedence diagram method. This precedence diagram method is also a very interesting one. What do we have here is we have a start to start, start to finish, finish to start, finish to finish. I know I sound crazy, but imagine we have a task A, and on the left side, bear with my drawing skills, this is called the start of the activity, and this is called the finish of the activity. Consider this as a activity block. So what happens here? We have four precedence diagram methods. What is this precedence diagram? We have the first activity and we have the second activity. Let's say activity A and activity B. And as we have learned here, the left line is called the start and right line is called the finish of the activity. So when we link the finish of the activity to the start of the next activity, so what does it mean? The activity B can start only after A is finished, right? So this is called the precedence diagram. So B or A has a precedence for B. So we have four such methods. There are four possibilities that we can link these two blocks. Again, the same block A and block B. So when we link the start to start, that is one precedence diagram. Similarly, we have discussed the finish to start. That is one method. How else can we link? From the start to finish or from finish to finish. So these four possibilities are there. So these four precedency diagrams can be used as the tools and techniques for the sequencing. Dependency, determination, and integration. So what are we talking about here? Dependency, determination, and integration. These are all mandatory, discretional, all the external activities which we have no control, and we can. I think you know what I'm trying to say here. On what activities are we dependent on? So we are dependent on legal requirements. We are dependent on discretionary requirements. What do we mean by discretionary? These are the best practices. So what and all activities we are dependent on, that we have to identify. Leads and lags. What does lead mean? Lead could be anything that is prior to the target, and lag, that is anything that can happen after the target. Like again, if I make use of the activity diagram, we have a project A which is done in 12. I said project, a process A which is done for 12 weeks, and process B which is done for 10 weeks. Now, if we have a link that from finish to start, so for B to start, we have a link that A has to be finished, and A has lead of 2 weeks. It means instead of 12, it can be completed in just 10 weeks. So the B can start 2 weeks earlier. I think I make sense now. So similarly, lag. Lag means instead of 12 weeks, this activity is completed in 14 weeks. Right? So what is the lag here? 14 minus 12, 2. So 2 weeks of lag. So in this way, we can estimate that B can only start in the worst case after 14 weeks only. These techniques are important. So that is this leads and lags. And then we have the PMIS. We discussed about the project management information system. Estimate activity durations. In simple terms, it is nothing but the time that we need for each activity to complete. So it is also done throughout the project, not done at one point of time. So usually it is the first estimate based on the past experience, and then it is monitored against the actual time. So let's quickly have a look at what is expected as outputs. Duration estimates. The time estimation of each activity is this task. Like the activity A can happen between 3 weeks, plus minus 3 days. Again, not just plus minus 3 days. We should also mention with what is the chance of success or chance of not getting success. So all those things are captured here in the estimates. Basis of estimates is how are these estimates derived? The reasoning behind these estimates. What is the basis on which the estimates are derived? That is the output for this activity. And then the project documents update. What documents we can update? Again, assumptions log, lessons learned can be updated here. Such things have to be updated after the end of this process. Now, what can we act as inputs? Project management plan, of course. Again, it will act as input. What in project management plan, if you ask? Schedule management plan and scope baseline. These two activities we can use as inputs. And project documents, also an important thing. It keeps on getting repeated in every process. So that also we can use as input. And of course, it goes without saying, enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. So let's jump into the tools and techniques. Again, the expert consultancy. We consult an expert to understand whether the estimation is right or not. Analogous estimating. What is this? This is nothing but the estimation based on similar project data that we had in the past. We have data from the past. Not in every case that the organization is doing its first project, right? So every organization has experience from one or other project that it has done before. So it will use that data for estimating. So it will not exactly match, of course. No two projects are going to match, but at least for the estimation, we can use that data. Similarly, parametric estimation, also based on historical data, but what is the difference between 2 and 3 is in 3 we add up the statistical formulas, Monte Carlo simulations and all. Those simulations are added, and then estimation is made a little more accurate here. So that is why the name parametric estimating is given. 3-point estimation. This, I think, is something important to learn. 3-point estimating. Some questions will come through this. What is this? 3-point estimation is nothing but we have done an analogous estimating and parametric estimating based on the previous experience, right? So in 3-point estimation, again, let me make use of the pen. So this is 3-point estimation. The name is called TE. And then this is nothing but an average of T0 and TM and TP. What is TM? This is nothing but the estimated time that we have taken from our previous experience. So this is that simple formula. So TM is nothing but the estimation based on our previous experience. T0 is the best case scenario and TP is the worst case scenario. Again, what is best case scenario and worst case scenario? Best case scenario is nothing but, we have discussed leads and lags, right? So if it has a lead, that is the best case scenario. If it has a lag, that is the worst case scenario. So all the cases are considered, and then the average is that a 3-point estimation, right? So very simple thing. The names sound very difficult, guys. This is nothing more than simple math. So don't be worried. So 3-point estimating will come as one of the questions in your exam. So keep it in mind, an important one. Bottom-up estimate. What happens here? This is, I think we have already learned this. This is an estimation of the total project duration. It breaks down the work structure, nothing but the WBS. So data analysis, moving up to data analysis. Here, an alternative analysis could be the tool. We know what an alternative analysis is. What else could there be? Reserve analysis. Reserve analysis can also be the data analysis, one of the data analysis. Reserve analysis is nothing but the schedule reserve. In case of uncertainty, we reserve some time, right? So that analysis is also important. And of course, decision making, we know we have many tools for decision making we learned in the previous classes. And then, of course, meetings can be used as tools and techniques for this process. Moving on, developing schedule. So developing schedule, again, is it done at a specific point or throughout the project? You guessed it right. It is also done throughout the project. So it is not done at a one single point. This process is done all through the project. So now that we have all the time estimates done from the previous processes, we get to create a few constraints, or time bound targets to develop the final schedule. So I hope you're all with me. So this is nothing but the iterative process, right? So, or agile. So developing schedule focuses more on, agile methodology. Let's see what we need to produce as outputs. Okay, a lot of them. We need to baseline the schedule as a result of the process. I hope you all still remember what a baseline is. Baseline is nothing but an approved schedule. Schedule management, schedule plan versus schedule baseline. Plan is the not approved plan and baseline is the approved plan. So we have to get the schedule baselined or approved at the end of this process. we need to make the project schedule to be ready at the end of this project. So we have seen an illustration about how this project schedule looks like, right? In the very first slide, I think I remember telling you, it could be in the form of a bar chart, it could be the Gantt chart. Do you recollect, or shall I use my exceptional drawing skills again? So this is nothing but on the left side, you have all the list of activities, and then all the other columns, we have months, January, February, March, something like this. And then we have the project schedule, right? So at the end of this activity, this chart has to be ready. This is called Gantt chart. So instead of this, we also have the activity list. So instead of just pasting the activities here, we also have a formal document for the activity list. Again, we learned about what this activity list is. This is nothing but the list of activities with attributes given. So on the left, we have specific attributes given, number 1, 2, 3, just an example. And these numbers are identified for easy reference, right? So every time we talk about one particular activity, we give that as a reference. This doesn't come in the exam, but I'm talking about the general project management practices. So this activity list is also a part of project schedule. Scheduling the data, all the information that is related to the scheduling, like requirements of resources at times, might even be the alternate schedules. All these are the scheduling data. The project calendars are important. I think it is self-understanding. We have change requests, the live document against the schedule. We have project management plan updates. What can be updated here? Again, schedule management plan can be updated. Cost baseline can be updated. And then project documents are updated as the 7th output. So these are the outputs. What are the inputs that we need? Of course, we will need the project management plan. We will be needing a set of project documents. What can be these project documents? They could be the activity list. They could be assumptions log, the list of milestones, risk registers, resource calendars. Resource calendars, what does it mean? The availability of the resources, right? Some person might be going for a long leave, for a marriage leave, for example. That might affect the project. So the resource calendars are also important project documents. So what else could there be? The project schedule network diagrams that we have designed before, that could be used as a project document. I think that's about it. And then we have agreements. I think we need not recollect what these agreements are. Memorandum of understanding, letter of intent, all these documents that we discussed before. Non-disclosure agreements with the vendors and the customers, so that they don't disclose our technology to anybody else. All such agreements are needed. Enterprise environmental factors. Again, this is a repeated input in almost all schedules. And the organizational process assets also act as an important input. We have to make sure all our organizational practices are followed throughout all processes. Okay, let's see what we have for tools and techniques. What can we use to convert these inputs to the expected outputs? Schedule network analysis. This is a generic term describing a tool, but you have learned what is critical path method. So critical path method is one of the scheduling network methods, right? So this is a generic name and this is a specific name. This is repeated because the network analysis is not just limited to critical path method or resource optimization. By the way, this is also a network analysis. So this is given because any other network analysis that is available, you can also use as tools and techniques, right? So remember guys, all these that we are learning here, they are not absolute. The project management is not just limited to this. These are all just the best practices. So you don't have to stick to it that only the critical path method has to be my tool. No, the options are not limited to this. So that is the reason why PMBOK guide has specifically given that any schedule network analysis tool can be used as a tool for this process. So again, moving on to the critical path method, you have learned what this critical path method is. Resource optimization. What is this? This is nothing but adjusting the start date and finish date of the resource availabilities. So there are two important techniques again within this resource optimization. The first technique could be the leveling of resources. What does it mean? Nothing but the demand of the resources versus supply of resources, right? what is the demand that we have, how many engineers do we need, how many construction workers do we need, and how many do we have. This comparison is called resource leveling, and one of the optimization techniques. The other technique could be smoothing of resources, playing within the available time. So it won't change the critical path. So yeah, these are the two resource optimization techniques. Just keep them in the back of your mind. Data analysis tools. What special tools can be used here? Again, whenever I'm mentioning this, please don't limit it to these options only. These are just an examples that are given by the PMBOK guide. You are free to choose any data analysis methods, right? So that is why I have not written it down here. These are not, whatever examples I'm giving, they are not limited to just these examples. So what can be taken as example here? The what if analysis. I think we have learned what if analysis. So nothing but it evaluates the plan, it questions every activity. What if this doesn't happen, right? We define an activity and then we question it, saying that what if the resource goes the other way? I think you get this thing. And then what else could be used as analysis tool? Simulation. I think we discussed this before. Monte Carlo analysis. So multiple work packages are calculated, assumptions are added, probabilities are added, statistical tables are used. So that can be used as the data analysis here. Leads and lags, we have discussed. Lead is nothing but doing an activity earlier. Lag is doing the same activity at a delay. Schedule compression. As the name says, this is nothing but to shorten the schedule, right? We have decided a schedule that it will be done in 20 weeks, and we have compressed it, saying that no, we want it to be done in 18 weeks. So how can this be done? This can be done if you add more resources, right? So instead of having 10 resources, just add an 11th resource and get the work done faster. Or do 2 or 3 parallel activities. So the parallel activities thing is actually a bit scary or risky because we have chances of failure a lot, because so many activities are being done in parallel. We will not get feedback from one activity to the other, right? So these are the compression techniques. And then PMIS, also an important thing, and agile release planning. What happens here? Again, the agile process, iterations and their associated outputs can be shown here as tools and techniques. This is favorite tool of the customer, guys. Always remember, because it gives us continuous feedback, right? Every now and then we have a feedback about what tasks are done, what tasks are pending, how many tasks we still have to do to finish our project, in how much time we can do it. We have a very strong continuous data, because after 7 or 8 sprints, right, we will understand the pace of the complete team, how fast the team is working or how slow the team is working. All these feedback are live, and this is quite transparent, unlike the waterfall methods where many things can be hidden. So this is the truth. So in agile method, there is nothing to hide. So more and more customers are actually preferring for these agile methods. The organizations are also going towards it to improve the processes. So I think with that said, we finish this process. We move on to the next one, controlling the schedule. Let's see what happens here. Controlling the schedule, it focuses on monitoring the status of the project. So a schedule is there, we monitor to control it. What do we have for the outputs? Work performance information. I think we have discussed about what performance information is. Scheduling the forecasts. There were something else before the project, and we need to estimate the forecasts now. So that's about it. Nothing much to learn here. Change requests we have to update at the end of this process. Project management plan we have to update. All the project documents we have to update. Again, if you ask specifically what project management plan components we have to update, the schedule management plan has to be updated. The schedule baseline has to be the result of this controlling schedule. Cost can be baseline, and performance measurement can be baseline. All these 4 components in this project management plan. And if you ask about what project documents are updated, again, the same set of documents like assumptions log can be updated. The estimates basis can be updated. Lessons learned can be updated. The project schedule itself can be updated. Risk register can be updated. Scheduling data can be updated. Don't have to write all this down, guys. The recording is available, and moreover, you don't have to go to the specifics here. Let's see the inputs. Okay, again, whatever I mentioned here, all the components, non-updated versions are taken as inputs, the current state and the updated state. And what project documents can be used as inputs? Again, the same list goes. Lessons learned register. I think the important one that we should focus on is the project calendars and the project schedule. Just remember these two things, that they are important for controlling the schedule. And work performance data. Of course, this also act as a very important update or input for the process, and always follow the organizational processes. So let's quickly move to the tools. Data analysis. So here again, I keep explaining this, but don't limit yourself with just these examples. So for controlling the schedule, what can we do? We can do earned value analysis. So this earned value, this is nothing but after end of every small task, what is the benefit that we get? So as the name suggests, earned value analysis is a very important tool for controlling the schedule. And iterations burn down chart. Iterations burn down chart is nothing but we have seen the agile method, the rolling wave method, that image that we have seen in the first slide. So after every sprint, some backlogs are also left, right? So in the Kanban board, if you remember, that is also the agile method. After the end of the sprint, some backlogs are left. So in this data analysis method of iteration burn down, after each iteration, whatever backlogs are remaining, sometimes they are added to the next sprint, or sometimes they are just left as backlogs. I think I have also stated this there. So all those left out backlogs, if they are not included in any one of the sprints to come, they will be left even at the end of the project, at the closing stage of the project, right? So at this closing stage, we cannot just close all those huge list of backlogs that are left, right? So it is important that somebody is tracking, or there is some mechanism tracking those backlog activities. So in controlling schedule, it is important that we look at all these backlogs. So planned versus actual timeline is again drawn for these backlogs, and it will be tracked. What else can there be? Trend analysis can be done, variance analysis can be done, what if analysis can be done. We learned about what if analysis, right? So again, don't limit yourself just with these tools. It is important that you know that these tools exist, and you can also use other tools if it helps in controlling the schedule. And then again, critical path method is also one important tool. We have learned about it. I think we need not have an explanation again. PMIS, all the softwares that you need, whether they are in place or not, whether we have access to this or not, what important or special softwares we are using, all this is project management information system. So I'm not going much in depth. And we have resource optimization. This is also an important tool. I think the name, as this itself suggests, this is nothing but how well we are optimizing the use of resources. I think we have spoken about this in just the previous process. Leads and lags, we understood what leads and lags is. Leads is nothing but an activity done quicker, and lags is an activity done a bit slower. And then schedule compression, we just learned in the last process. Hi and hello everyone. Welcome back to this PMP exam. We are already at our fourth knowledge area today. We'll be discussing about the cost management. Just a quick review. So far in these classes, we have covered the overview of the exam content outline, and then three knowledge areas we have covered. What they are: the project integration management, the project scope management, and then the project schedule management. So let's move to the course. So this class today is going to be a special one. This topic, the cost management, it is considered to be the toughest of all the knowledge areas. So it is toughest not because of the processes. In fact, there are just 4 processes in this knowledge area to cover. The misconception of difficulty is coming only because of the mathematical formulae, especially in the fourth process. I mentioned that there are 4 processes here, right? So in the fourth process, there is this tool called controlling of the costs, the tools of the controlling costs. They have a lot of formulae to cover. So this is a important section because the questions will come directly from this formulae. Whenever I'm saying formulae, don't worry so much, because they are just additions and subtractions and divisions. So the difficulty comes where you try to remember the names. So what should we divide with what should we subtract from what, These things, if you just remember these things, there is nothing mathematical about it. So trust me, there is nothing to be scared about. As I said, a lot of formulas here are quite basic mathematics. So you know what I'm talking about as we learn them in the process. So without wasting much time, let's quickly jump to it. The project cost management. The main purpose of having this process is to complete our budget within the given money. So it helps in controlling the expenditure in all possible areas throughout the project and saving a lot of money to the company. Many companies, especially the struggling ones or the ones who has a disrupting new product, some completely new technology, what they do, they often launch a product at a very cheaper cost, or they quote the price of the product so competitive just to get the business from a customer. But to produce that product or provide that service, we cannot just restrict ourselves to the product. Let it be product, service, or any result. To get that output, the quoted price may not be always profitable to the organization. So, how can a company sustain without profits? So, the company has to sell, but then it has to sell at a cheaper cost, right? So, here comes the cost management. It won't be an exaggeration when we say that some organizations even sell the product for loss. So the cost of the product is actually more than the selling price. Usually, the case when the company from a developed nation, let's say the US, the Europe, or from the Australia, the products when they come to a third world country, they try to introduce their product at a very cheaper cost because in their country the same product might be selling at a very higher rate when they do the exact conversion. Let's take the example of the chips Pringles. The Pringles you might have seen in your supermarket in India. I'm talking about the country India. So in India, the Pringles is available for like 90 rupees, 95 rupees. But if you compare the cost for the same Pringles packet in US, it comes for no less than $2, right? So $2 is like 150 rupees in India. So how is this being possible? So the cost of manufacturing of the Pringles in US and India is quite different. If consider the Pringles making company, they decide to export everything from US. Do you think it is feasible for the company to sell it in India? It won't be because the chips packet, after traveling so far, after getting added all the taxes, the excise duties, it will be more than what the price would be in US. So they establish themselves here. I'm just taking the example of Pringles. It could be any company. So whenever they come and establish in a third world country, they learn the market first. So first they introduce the product at a very cheaper price. They get the business, and then if the market likes the product, then they decide to invest locally. So it is pointless first to come here, just invest a lot of money, millions of dollars, and then start selling later. No, it doesn't work like that. So what they do is they first come here, they just test the market, and then they decide to invest after the product is actually selling here, right? So basically, bottom line, the same product, two different countries, two different prices, all by managing the costs. So let's quickly go ahead and see how this cost management works. Yeah, the project cost management, as I mentioned, you can see that there are just four processes that we need to learn. What are they? So if we quickly have a look at each process, first we have the planning of the cost management. It's quite similar to the plan of schedule management that we learned yesterday. So second is going to be estimating the costs. Here what we are going to do, we will attempt to approximate the monetary resources. We will need to the resources that we will need to complete the project work. That estimation is done. And determining the budget, we will focus mostly on baselining the costs here. Baselining, when I say finalizing or approving the costs. Finally, the controlling of the part, full of scary formulae. Just joking, nothing to be afraid here. So the second and the third processes that we see here, the estimate costs and determine the budget, they are explained as separate activities here in the PMBOK guide. But what happens is, if the organization is very small, they usually combine these two activities. There are no two separate activities. Estimating the cost and determining the budget, they are actually one and the same. So the smaller companies who follow the project management practices, they don't do these two activities as separate ones. They just do it as a single activity. So, but we are here to learn for the sake of exam. So it is better to learn these two separately, right? So separate ITTOs for estimate cost, separate ITTO for determine budget. Let us just learn it and get done with it. And very important thing before we move on, I wanted to also throw some light on the key concepts of cost management. See, the cost management is not just about saving the money blindly, cutting the resources, cutting the costs, like turning off the AC while the employees are working. No, that's just foolish. So if we cut the cost of, let's say, by totally eliminating an important design review cycle, the cost of manufacturing might increase. So it's quite foolish. We cannot do that. If, for example, if we cut the costs of a quality inspection, the cost that we must expect from the failures at the customer end, it's unimaginable, it's priceless. So the organization might even have to shut down just because they have eliminated a quality inspection. So in that case, it will be 100% cost saving. Jokes apart, so it's better to be sensible when saving the cost. Only the additional costs have to be saved or controlled. So what are the latest trends in this project cost management? It is also important because in the exam point of view, because here we are focusing on the sixth PMBOK guide. In addition to this traditional methods or the PMBOK guide 6, there are some emerging trends as well. So what these trends are, we may get some questions from earned value management. You will get accustomed to this word, and earned value management, EVM. Just remember it, it's very, very important for us. So this earned value management, in the latest trends, we are also including the earned schedule to it. I know I don't make much sense here. Let me use the whiteboard. Okay.